AI doesn't think like you think. In fact, it doesn't even know what it's saying.
You know, when we talk about AI, we use words like wants or thinks or decides all the time. But what if that entire way of thinking is actually leading us down the wrong path? Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful reframe for how we understand what AI is doing, shifting our whole perspective away from choice and toward pure movement. Just think about the last time you used a large language model. You ask it something, and it spits out this perfectly coherent, well-structured answer. It really feels like it considered all the options and then picked the very best words, right? That feeling of intention is so strong. But is that what's actually happening under the hood? So here's our game plan. First, we're going to bust the AI decision myth. Then, we'll get into the core idea here, moving through something called a probability space. We'll look at why this movement can look so much like a deliberate choice, how this new model totally changes our approach to AI safety, and finally, how it helps us start asking the right questions. All right, first up, the AI decision myth. We have to start by challenging one of our most basic assumptions, that AI behavior is the result of a decision. See, we project our own human model onto AI, so automatically, we don't even see it as an assumption anymore. But that very assumption might be the real source of all our confusion. I mean, we know how our own thought process works. It involves weighing pros and cons, having some goal in mind, and then making a conscious choice. But when we look at an AI, what's really going on in there? For now, it's kind of like a black box, and just assuming it works the same way we do is a massive leap of faith. So here's the crucial point. Whenever we argue about what an AI intends or what it wants, we're forcing a human-shaped peg into a non-human hole. It pulls our entire conversation up to this abstract level, and we completely miss the mechanical reality of what's actually generating the behavior down below. Okay, so if an AI isn't choosing, then what in the world is it doing? Well, that brings us to our second section, and the central idea of this whole explainer. We need to replace the concept of choosing with a new one, moving. This quote just nails the shift perfectly. An AI isn't a pilot choosing a destination from a map. It's much more like a boat that's being guided by the invisible currents of a powerful river. The behavior we see, that's just the path it takes through the water. And this river is what we can call a probability field. Try to picture this vast, invisible landscape of every possible next word. The shape of that landscape is determined by two things: the AI's programming, its weights, and the prompt you just gave it. The AI doesn't decide where to go. The very contours of this field dictates its every single move. And this process is incredibly dynamic. At any given moment, there's a field of possibilities for the next tiny piece of the answer. The AI lands on one, generating a word or what's called a token. But here is the absolute key. The second that token is generated, the entire field instantly reshapes itself around it. So the AI's very next move happens in a brand new landscape, one that was just created by the last step. It's this constant, mind-bending cycle of collapse and reshape. Let's make this concrete with a real-world example. An AI might generate a sentence like, "No, that's not correct. Therefore, 1.7 long equals 170 grams. So it starts by disagreeing, but then it immediately states the correct fact. From a human point of view, it seems totally unaware of its own contradiction. So why does this happen? It's because once the word no collapsed into reality, it became a fixed point, an anchor. The probability field instantly reshaped itself around that no. The AI isn't thinking globally and reevaluating its first statement. It's just trying to find the most probable, most stable path forward within this new, now constrained landscape. It's basically just rationalizing the path it's already on. This brings us to a huge question. If it's all just mechanical movement, why does it feel so intentional? This is where we get into the illusion of intent. The answer, it turns out, is in our own heads. We have this deep cognitive bias where we interpret stable, consistent behavior as goal-directed. So when an AI maintains a coherent argument or it keeps up a consistent tone, our brains are just hardwired to see an agent with a purpose. But in reality, we're just watching a stable trajectory through that probability field. So what we see on the surface is a coordinated agent, a boat that looks like it's sailing with a purpose. But what's actually happening underneath is a system just following the powerful currents of its own operational space. We see the boat's path, but we completely miss the river that's guiding it. And this is the real aha moment. Agency isn't a property inside the AI. It's not some switch that gets flipped on. It's an interpretation that happens in our minds when we watch the AI's behavior. Agency emerges right there, at the boundary between the system's movement and our interpretation of it. Now, this insight has huge implications. Let's look at how it gives us a completely new take on AI safety. Because if agency is just an illusion we project onto the machine, then our whole approach to making AI safe might be built on a totally flawed foundation. The traditional approach to safety is all about alignment. You know, trying to align the AI's intentions with our own. But here's the massive problem. If the AI has no intentions, no goals in any real psychological sense, what exactly are we trying to align? You can't align a property that isn't even there in the first place. This reframes safety failures completely. It stops being about an AI suddenly wanting to be harmful. Instead, it's about its operational path drifting into an unexpected but very stable region of that probability field, like finding a weird uncharted corner of the map that the developers never even knew was there. It's a problem of system dynamics, not a moral failing. And this forces us to ask a much deeper, much more important question. We need to stop focusing only on the final output, the answer, and start asking, who is shaping this probability field? Who is controlling the architecture of the very space where the AI's movement happens? Because that's where the real power is. So, to wrap all this up, our final section is all about asking the right questions. This new model gives us a much better toolkit for asking smarter, more precise questions. Ones that actually target the mechanism, not the illusion of a mind. So instead of asking that old question, what is the AI thinking? We should be asking the new, better question. What forces are shaping the probability field that it's moving through? And instead of asking, does it have a goal? We need to be asking, what is it that's keeping its trajectory so stable? What are the riverbanks that are keeping this movement on this very specific path? And this leaves us with the ultimate challenge. If we accept that we can't align intentions that don't exist, the question becomes way more practical and honestly way more profound. How do we actually govern its movement? How do we build the systems that shape these fields and guide these trajectories in ways that are safe and reliable and truly beneficial? That is the real work ahead.